anybody can become an influencer, and anybody can use the tools that exist on Instagram and the tools that exist on TikTok and create fabulous high-end production value type content.
Hello, I am Wayne Fletcher. I am the Chief Strategy Officer of Local Planet, and I'm here with Jon Carney.
I'm Jon Carney, CEO of WarmStorm. We are an influencer agency.
Can you tell me a little bit more about WarmStorm?
So we're a bunch of people from creative advertising backgrounds, but we saw the kind of shift that was happening in the market 4 or 5 years ago, where the concept of influencer was becoming dominant in some categories on social, particularly beauty, particularly D2C brands. And we thought it was an opportunity to it's one of those, is it a mini revolution in advertising? Does it reset advertising? Is it like the future of creativity? And so that's what we've been doing for the last 4.5 years. And it's been an interesting ride.
So what was the catalyst for creating it? What was the problem that you were trying to solve initially in the early days?
I think the world of kind of big budget, high level production advertising that we've come from, most of us in the company, it's very slow moving. And I have a really short attention span. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
And so, and also having worked in social, from the very genesis of social back in whenever that was, 2007, 2006. And seeing all those evolutions, and I could see the influencer, creator, the two words are interchangeable for us. We could see that was just going to dominate. So we had to make sense of it.
And how did clients respond? Because I remember that time period as well, and there was this massive debate as to what goes into social, what kind of content fits into that environment.
Yeah.
What was your experience working with clients in the early days of that?
So I've always been a digital marketing person.
Yep.
So for as long as you can call yourself a digital marketing person. So you have a chip on your shoulder constantly, when you're trying to convince people about the power of, as was the internet, and then the mobile internet, and then social. etc. and I've been very used to, big brand platforms where social is kind of the poor relative, and then influencer was once again the poor relative of social. And what we're seeing now is that planning triangle, if you will, is inverted, so that your influencer strategy can be the strategy for your brand, which is exactly how the most powerful D2C brands behave. And we're now trying to educate other big global brands to behave in that way in their advertising. And it's beginning and it's happening, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So what kind, because I come from a branding background, and one of the key things that we used to discuss at that time was, well, okay, if the influencer takes control of the story, where does the story emanate from? Is it still from the brand, and how much control does the brand need to have of its communications? Or are those days gone?
So we work for brands.
Yeah.
And all our content stars influencers, but we're always in service to brands. So we create these things called creative frameworks.
Yep.
Which are strategic and creative ways to unlock the brand opportunity, but with influencers and playing by the rules of the platform. Be that Instagram, be that Reels, be that TikTok, whatever it may be. Those creative frameworks, they deliver the brand message in a coherent way, but also they're the thread that ties all the different pieces of content together in a campaign. So if you're a consumer and you see the campaign from different creators, you get a sense of, oh, it's that again. Oh, it's that again.
Right.
So, I don't think that way of working is unique to us, but it's certainly a strength that we have in the influencer space, which is we're a kind of, we're a derivative of a creative agency that services brands fundamentally. Yeah. So sometimes you hear influencers and creators saying, we must have full creative control. Good luck to them. They're not the people we work with.
So tell me about creative democratization, or the disruption of creativity.
I think that's been the opportunity at the beginning of this wave of influencer marketing, which has been the last 3 to 4 years, where anybody can become an influencer and anybody can use the tools that exist on Instagram and the tools that exist on TikTok and create fabulous high-end production value type content. If you think of Instagram sort of up there with Photoshop in terms of what you can achieve and nowadays, but TikTok is like Final Cut Pro. So you can do so much in platform. All you need is a smartphone.
Yeah.
And then it's, the limit is your creativity. If you think of the kind of the current crop of leading influencers and also rising star influencers, these were people who, they tend to be quite young, but not exclusively, but they're people who didn't have an audience or a presence 5 years ago. So it's always new, and it means that the democratic opportunity for creativity is now as broad as the social network and the smartphone.
Yeah.
Whereas, in our histories,
Yeah.
it was always something within the creative department of the agency.
Yeah.
And that's no longer the case. So I think I'm all for it, power
Yeah.
to the people, great.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other kind of outtakes of that is that we're producing content and campaigns which is truly faster, cheaper, better, those three. And it's always faster in terms of the production times, it's always cheaper in terms of production costs, and it performs much better than traditional advertising on social. So once you've got those three in play, there really is no limit to what you can achieve creatively, what you can do with numerous highly representative creators who can connect with different audiences across a broad target audience for a brand. I think that's great. I think it's really good.
Yeah, it is.
But I also think that the genie's out the bottle now on that one. I can't imagine us going back to a world which is actually, we don't want democratized creativity. What we want is, we want a few rock stars producing highly polished, beautiful work. It's like, it's not going to happen.
So the big thing, certainly amongst some of our clients at Local Planet, is shoppable, right? And the creators and influencer world works quite well in that space, doesn't it?
Yeah. If you look at, once again, D2C brands, they're all about driving sales, right? That's their whole model, isn't it? And so it's like, how do you use influencers, creators to drive those outcomes and drive better outcomes? Creative storytelling through the funnel is what brands need nowadays. Don't you find that?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. Well, I do, and I think particularly certain sectors, like I have an affinity, as everybody at Local Planet knows, for cars and the automotive sector. That's seen a massive shift over the course of the last few years in influencers really disrupting the entire automotive world, right? And who tells the story about these new vehicles that are coming into play? And it's having a massive, and the interactivity within some of that content is really fascinating as well, creating opportunities for bookings and potential purchases of vehicles.
I think automotive is a great sector to focus on because it's very conservative typically from an advertising point of view. We're all used to the sort of generic
high ticket items,
somewhere in Europe type road in a mountain type advertising, and it's a little bit meh, and the new creativity that comes out of influencers in that space is really exciting. But also, we develop campaigns for auto brands that connect to lower funnel registration, WhatsApp channels. So always considering that, how does this content connect to commerce at some point? And I think auto's great because it's very clear to understand, you're driving leads, it's about lead generation, and that's what dealerships want, and that's what the auto brands want. So it's easy to understand the targets and what you're trying to achieve.
Are there any clients that you struggle to engage your proposition to? Are there clients that are a little bit nervous about moving into that space?
Yeah. I mean, particularly in the world of TikTok, which is quite interesting. So we do a lot of work across TikTok. Our other thing, our other offer is making TikTok work for brands. There's a lot of big advertiser brands that are still nervous of TikTok, and I think it's an array of challenges around age. It's about brand safety. It's about all of those things where there's just a sort of sense of how do we do it, and who's gonna be the trusted hand that we can hold to make TikTok work for us. So, I mean, that's something that we work with TikTok on, to unlock opportunities because TikTok's the most watched screen on the planet, right? So the advertising opportunity, particularly from an awareness point of view, is huge. I think that's probably the most consistent one. The other challenges we had in the past were marketing teams giving over control to creators, back to that point of creative frameworks. So they need to feel safe about, into a campaign budget, how are we going to make sure that we're going to get things that are absolutely work for us? And the answer is, you know what, you've got to be a bit fluid about it. You've got to kind of change how you work. We still work with clients who adopt a very traditional advertising production approach, where they're very, they want to spend a lot of time in post-production and doing a lot of finessing. And ideally, it's not how we operate now.
No.
You know, we're trying to push brands into listen, we'll do that highly polished version, but let's do a very loose, kind of closer to native version as well, and then let's do some variants in between, and then let the algorithm decide what's actually best for your target audience, because the algorithm, whether we like it or not, knows best.
Well, I think TikTok has been a real disruptor, because I think as a platform, introducing itself as a place for creative expression, right, has given so much power to the ordinary person, but it also allows brands to express themselves in different ways as well.
Yeah.
So I know clients are, quite reserved. There are lots of very reserved and conservative clients, and so they should be. There's a lot of money that they're investing. But I think TikTok has broadened the concept of creativity and what it means to express who you are for people as well as brands, and so it must be a really exciting place to play in.
Exactly. You see a lot of cultural trends starting on TikTok now. So how do brands connect with that without appearing like a dad dancing at a wedding or whatever?
Like me.
So like all of us. But sadly, there's a way to crack that from a strategic point of view, and then from a creative execution point of view. But I think TikTok just gives so many ways to reinterpret a brand for a new audience. So if you're working with a brand our audience is getting too old for us, we need to invest in the new younger audience, crack TikTok. Yeah. Because that will help. Yeah. It's a great way to reset. It's a fantastic R&D platform as well. You can just test new concepts, test new creative platforms, test new products at relatively low cost. Yeah. And a little damage as well. It's the ultimate test and learn playground, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think we're going to run out of time, but I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask. So one, because Warm Storm sounds fantastic, and I've seen some of your work, how could Local Planet work with you? How could we work better together?
We have a way of working internationally, but we have a very small footprint around the world. So the easiest way for us to connect will be on international and global opportunities where we can bring our kind of influencer expertise, but Local Planet's local knowledge as well, and try and bring those together, and try and solve that challenge that all global brands have, which is the tension between central marketing and local marketing. So I think that's the opportunity.
Your big trend for 2024, what are you excited about in your space this year?
It's not so much excited, but more of an observation. So much marketing is now pretending to be influencer marketing. Yeah. Where you're seeing big budget campaigns. You may have seen the Beckhams, Uber Eats. I mean, it felt like a piece of influencer content. It's like, so even at that level of like global celebrity, it's like influencer is a trend that everybody's jumping on now. So I think we're going to see that more and more. I've seen campaigns for large cosmetic brands where they're using fantastic comedy actors to behave like influencers, and it's like, right, okay, that's becoming a trend. That's a thing.
Well, wonderful. Look forward to working with you more.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot.
Nice to see you.
Cheers.